Great news, you can now farm the Frostwalker. Also, this one change from hotfix 1.07 has made farming void intercepts and missions much easier. Let's get to it.
Let's do this!
So hotfix 1.07 released yesterday, Tuesday, August 13th. We went over the patch notes in this video, so if you haven't seen all of those details, I think it's worth a quick watch. But with hotfix 1.07 came a few really cool changes that I want to hone in on in this video. One of those is Frostwalker. So Frostwalker is one of the Void Intercept battle bosses or Colossi, and he's right here towards the end. And he's was extremely difficult, sort of a gatekeeper because of his mechanics. Just a little background here to make sure we're on the same page. All of these dudes are tanky in one way or another. Some of them have regeneration mechanics and some of them don't. But this one was, I want to say, a little bit more janky. If you had a chance to fight him before they nerfed him, then you probably know that he would do like crazy legs. He's sort of like a giant crab. Very much the same as Swamp Walker, except he's all about ice. When Swamp Walker goes into his frenzy immunity mode, he sits still and you have to go around him and shoot those weak points. Well, Frostwalker doesn't do that. He did not do that before either. So he rotates, he moves around, but he's also like stepping really fast, so kicking up his legs really fast, and his weak points are on his legs, just like Swamp Walker, and you have to destroy those weak points in order to get him out of his frenzy immunity stage. Now, the problem is, if you don't do that by the 7.5 minute mark, as the clock's ticking down, then he's gonna go into basically a wipe mechanic. You could bypass that wipe mechanic by collecting all of these red flames. The problem in the past was there just wasn't enough flames. And you're so focused on the boss, the wrong person could accidentally collect those, and you sort of want a designated person to do so. But flames aside, mechanics aside, the worst part about this guy was trying to shoot his weak points. You just couldn't get them. And so what the community was doing basically to bypass him was ensure they had enough DPS up front by bringing in like some glass cannon Lepic builds and just making sure that they wiped him before that 7.5 minute mark, so that way you could just bypass all the mechanics. But for public lobbies, it's difficult because you go in there and is there a Lepic? Is there not a Lepic? This isn't the guide. I just want to make sure I'm painting the picture of what was going on. So now let's just jump straight to where we are today. Okay, let's take a look to the changes they made on paper to Frostwalker. So they said lowered the difficulty of mechanics in the hard intercept battle Frostwalker. Destroying frenzied parts will now generate 2 embers. And so you'll see the embers laying all over the place. So they're really easy to not miss. And then they increased the maximum threshold of the frenzy gauge, reducing the number of times of the Colossus becoming frenzied, which is good. Number 3, when using slug shots to frenzied Colossus, its leg movements will be reduced, making it easier to aim at its weak points. But overall, I think the best quality of life change to this boss is how fast his legs are moving. So they say that his leg movements will be reduced, but he tends to have a pattern in his rotation in the way he's moving his legs. And either way, every now and again he stops, and as long as you have enough DPS, when he stops, that's enough time to get rid of that weak point. He still rotates a lot. That being said, all of that combined doesn't make him the easiest boss of the lot, but he's now no longer the hardest. In my opinion, that Molten Fortress is now more difficult than Frostwalker, and that makes this nerf a really good nerf because it put Frostwalker in his place. I don't think he should be more difficult than Molten Fortress. And Molten Fortress isn't that difficult, but it's a pain in the butt to manage those electric towers. And if the team isn't all in sync, then that whole boss just goes haywire. And it's the same thing here. Frostwalker, he ultimately gets boiled down to a DPS check. So there's still mechanics. The mechanics are the weak points. Shooting those weak points when he goes into his frenzies. And I ran this several times. Only one team did we not defeat him by 7:30. Luckily, somebody was picking up the flames and I got frozen, and then they came and saved me, and then we finished the boss. So we were able to recover. But what was really cool is that when I was saved, there were 2 people that had enough embers, and they both came running to my rescue. It all comes down to how many weak points you break, because each one's dropping too. So I was able to farm Frostwalker back to back to back, and I had a bunch of patterns there. And I gotta say, I was one of those who cheesed my way through the first time. When I first fought him, I didn't have my characters where they are now. But there's gonna be other people like that, and I think this experience is gonna be a little bit better for those who are still working their way up. And I think this is a good change. I don't want everything to be super easy, but you gotta remember, there are no clans here, and there's a lot of people that don't have a deep friends list. So the majority of the player base are in public lobbies, and that's what these bosses need to be designed for. Well, at least for now. And I think once they open up the ability to create clans or something like that, then I think that would be the best time to introduce more mechanics. But yeah, some mechanics got to be there. They just got to be reasonable. And the reality is, let's just admit it, that once your character is leveled up all the way with all their catalysts and stuff like that, I mean, they just become sort of demigods, and all of the bosses become relatively easy. Some Descendants more than others, sure. And I think that's why the mechanics need to be there, so it's just not point and shoot and face tank the boss, because you can kind of do that at this stage. And so the mechanics are the important speed bump to keep the game from becoming flat and too easy. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's too easy now? Do you think it's still too hard and they need to nerf it more? Or do you think it's just right? This was this other change, and I quickly went over this in the patch notes when we reviewed those. I explored this more in multiple scenarios, and boy, does it make the entire game experience better, I gotta say, and it's such a small change. Let's take a look at it.
Let's do this!
So it's this change. You can now restart with the current squad or restart the entire mission, which will put you into a matchmake loop. And this is the notes that they put there. So before, I wasn't able to fight the same boss over and over again without first traveling back to Albion, and then going back into my map menu, and then selecting the boss, and then going through a loading screen, waiting for matchmaking, all that fun stuff, right? And then you would go, maybe you beat him, maybe you didn't, and then you'd have to go back to Albion. And that sucks because, you know, we're collecting all these patterns, right? We're fighting all these missions and collecting all these patterns because we know it's gonna take multiple shots to get what we're looking for, unless we're super lucky. So it was really annoying. So the restart function has been separated to restart mission and start with the current squad. Start with the current squad lets you begin the match with the squad who joined your last intercept battle or infiltration operation. If you want to quickly begin a new match with others, you can select restart mission. There is no time limit for selecting restart mission, so you can restart the mission at your leisure as you collect and open all of your materials. So you know you have the summary screen, so when you go in there, you can see, you know, all the stats and whatnot. Well, at the very bottom, you'll see these options. If I hold down the left trigger, it'll allow me to matchmake with this current squad. Now, here's the deal. If not everybody does that in the squad, it'll backfill that open slot. If nobody selects it and you were the only one, then it'll backfill the other 3 slots. So basically put you in that restart mission loop. If you completed it and everybody bailed and there's no team to restart with, then you can just choose the restart mission thing. That option disappears. If you're like me, it's more important that you pick up your gear and interact with your materials than to set your restart. And so what happens is that little menu option will disappear. But if you go into your sub menu, for me, I hit the start button, then pull up this option here, which is show me the stats from the last mission. And from that menu, you can restart the mission. And you can do this solo as well upon success. So after you beat the boss, you can go into restart and fight him again all by yourself, army of one, and burn through all of your patterns much, much faster without going to Albion. I wish they gave you the option to restart the mission even if you're not successful. I don't see where that would hurt anything in the game, but if things aren't going your well, like if you're trying to speed run it, or you're trying to do it under a certain time limit, or you're trying to test something on your build, it'd be nice to go into your menu and say restart, and it cuts off the fight and throws you back to the beginning. But right now, the way it works is you have to abort, go back to Albion, and then go through some loading screens to get back to where you were to fight that void boss. So that kind of sucks. But I do also want you to know that these mechanics appear to also be working in those missions, infiltration operations. So I went around and tested this in different scenarios, and I want to note that there's no indicator that it's matchmaking. So if the other person you were playing with leaves and you selected to rerun with that current squad member, and there's no squad member, you kind of wonder if you're just standing there in vain, but it's actually matchmaking and trying to pair you up with other people. There's just no status icon or anything like that. So I just think that makes the whole experience a lot better. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for The First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.